Hi everyone, Kim here at Olive City Homestead, and it is the first week of July, and I have some work to do in the garden, so I thought I'd take you along with me. I have a bunch of veggie seedlings that really need to get into the garden, and it's been so hot the last several weeks that even though some of them have already been ready, I just didn't have the time or energy to put them in that heat. And also, it's really not good though to plant veggie seedlings or flower seedlings in the middle of a lot of heat, which is, pretty much all summer here. So when I can get a break like I'm having today with the sun going in and out and lower temps, then I definitely want to take advantage of that. So let's gather up all the seedlings and get busy working in the garden. Come join me. The weather has finally cooperated after several weeks of 100 to 110 degree weather. It has dropped down to just the mid to high 80s this week. And that, for around here, is cool. And it's overcast, which never happens. So it really happened at a great time. Yeah, the timing is perfect because my seedlings that I started really need to get in the ground. And in this bed where I pulled out my safflowers, which I'm going to cut off those heads and save all those seeds, I'm going to be planting a bunch of melon. I've got noir de carme, green nutmeg, and emerald gem. And I think I have Kajari melon too here. So that's going in here next to the corn and some cherry tomatoes. And after I do that, I have a lot of other seedlings still to plant. I have put some lemon squash in this bed, which last year was my pepper bed, and then early this spring was overtaken by, dozens and dozens of volunteer borage plants, which I have now pulled out, all but one little one there. And I'm going to be filling this bed up with all kinds of squash. Of course, I have squash in other beds too, but I have a lot of seedlings that need to go in here. Some delicata, some butterbush, some kabocha. I have some places here and there, like right here in this bed where ran a potato I need to pull out there, that I can plant a few more squash. And in these beds where the squirrels went to town, coming in from the olive orchard, they took out all my beans along the fence about 5 times. Yep, I replanted over and over, and they just, they let them get to right where they were full of leaves and blossoming, and I was hopeful, and then they would take out every leaf. I did leave them in there, and they looked pretty sad. But I thought, they can be sacrificial plants. The squirrels hit those first, maybe they'll leave everything else alone. So far, they haven't come back to get my other plants. Okay, so I know they don't like lantana. I know they don't care for tomatoes. I already knew that. And I knew they didn't like peppers. But they did eat this random volunteer okra down to the vine. You can see I left a couple chewed up leaves on there. I then covered it with some wire cages like this but taller, and it has grown back, as has this melon, which also they ate completely, but they haven't come back. I don't know if they've had their appetite sated by the bean vines or what. So anyway, along the other side and filling in the gaps in this bed, and in my new bed right here, which looks pretty full but does have a few empty spots, I'll be planting some more squash. So right now in it are some squash as well as a bunch of Moon and Stars watermelon. Now the Moon and Stars watermelon has not been touched one tiny bit by anything. It's amazing, and it doesn't mind the heat at all. It loves it, so I'm super pleased with that. And I know from past experience that those watermelon are absolutely delicious. But yeah, I have a few empty spots I can plug in a squash. This is not corn. It looks like corn, but it's actually broom corn sorghum, which is a gorgeous plant that I'm really looking forward to seeing and harvesting. All planted up. I'm liking the look of it. A couple of them, I had 2 plants in a pot and I just planted them together. They'll do fine that way. In fact, they might even do better than singly. So yeah, green nutmeg melon, emerald gem melon, noir de carme, and I've got moss de Maroc, which looks really strong. And I've never tried that one before. The rest I have, and I love them all. So we'll see how these do next to the corn and tomatoes. So it is the next morning. It's still cool. It's only about 59 degrees Fahrenheit right now at 7 a.m. But as you can see, the sun is out. There are some clouds in the sky, so I think it's going to go back and forth today from overcast to sunny. But the temps are supposed to only get up to 84. So again, another cool day here in Northern California. Now, in the last clip, I showed you that I did get this melon bed planted up, but I was actually outside from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. working in the garden yesterday with my seedlings and, you know, other random things that came up as they always do. But yes, I got some Kajari melon planted here and some delicata squash right here next to the society garlic and zucchini. And in last year's pepper bed, I added a third lemon squash here to join the other two. They're a little ahead of it. And a bunch of other plants. And what are they? They're all squash. Let's see if I can read the tags. I have had such a time this year trying different tags out. And as you can see, the writing is super faded here. I just ordered some wax black artist type crayons. Supposedly those work great. We'll see. And some more delicata squash here. Absolutely one of my favorites. If you haven't tried it, do so. It's like a small butternut, but well, the skin has green stripes in amongst the orange, and the flesh is even sweeter than a butternut in my opinion. It's just kind of indescribable, but one of my new favorites. Here in the middle, I planted an echinacea that I had started from seed. And what do we got here on the other side? These are two kabocha squash looking nice and healthy. And have you noticed something? Because I sure did. I was a little hesitant, a little nervous to come out this morning because I wondered if the squirrels would have visited during the night and eaten down all my squash, but no. They are all looking great. I don't see signs of squirrels have come in at all, which makes me very happy. Here, I've planted two of the butter bush, which are miniature butternuts. That's basically exactly what they are, in fact. Single serving size butternut. Last year, those were awesome. You should try them too. The Burgess Buttercup is doing well. In fact, here on the other side of that bed, on the cucumber trellis, look there, my first Burgess Buttercup squash. Oh, look, right behind it, another Armenian cucumber. I need to get harvesting. And in this bed with my red snacking peppers and some yellow crookneck and some agastache. Oh, and a few walking onions there. Look, I cut down most of them and harvested the tops. Proud of myself for that. Here, I've got two more Maroc melons. This one looks like it's got a little bit of powdery mildew, but I'm just going by what others have said. I've never had any issue with disease or bugs in squash, and this could just be natural. Some veining in squash plants looks like this. In any case, I've seen it a few times in my life, and it's never bothered the plant, so I'm certainly not worried about it, and I don't think you should be either if you've got it. I love agastache, all the different colors. You know, I've heard some people call it agastache. I don't know about that. That sounds kind of strange to me, but, you know, it could easily be that. But I'm going to keep calling it agastache. Here, I have transplanted a volunteer, what I believe is tomatillo plant, but we shall see. And an eggplant, a Listata de Grandia. I've never grown that before. I've only grown a pinton long purple eggplant, which I actually really love the looks of and sort of am learning to enjoy the taste of. Didn't grow up with eggplant and trying different things with that. If you have a recipe for it that takes away that, you know, weird eggplant taste. I know about salting it and letting that soak up that taste and then washing it. I do that. It helps a lot. But yeah, gonna try this one, see what I think of it. Now, I had a gap in my corn and cherry tomato bed, and I have planted some more delicata. Told you I love it. I'm hoping that that double seedling planting produces a lot of squash for me and vines in and around the corn. Now in the bed where I have my long Chinese red noodle beans trying to grow up the trellis, some more successfully than others. Hey, they're trying, folks, they're trying. I do have some blossoms. So I'm hopeful I'm gonna see some beans this year. Really hopeful because I do love them and I'm trying really hard and I finally got them growing where the squirrels and birds aren't eating them to the ground. In fact, some of them have grown past the top of my 6-foot trellis and up into the air. I've tried to sidewind them. I'm gonna keep trying to do that. But yeah, I'm not building the trellis higher than 6 foot. That would seem to be rather self-defeating. I know I could have made an arch. I didn't. Maybe next time. And the echinacea that's growing next to my olive orchard fence in Chicken Run is looking really good. In fact, I think you need to harvest some blooms and leaves for echinacea tea. Like everything else in the realm of herbs and blossoms, it's super easy to dehydrate these and save them for later on a rainy, cool winter afternoon. Hot tea is delicious, plus so good for you. In this bed, I put 4 pots, all of them containing Amish pie squash. Now, I grew Amish pie squash a couple of years ago, and wow, they get huge. I'm hoping to make flour from it. Now that I know I can dehydrate and grind alternative flours from squash, it seems to me the bigger the squash I do that with, the better. Now, I used pots in here, which all, of course, have holes that I put in on the bottom and on the lower edges of the sides with my soldering iron, and they're buried in the dirt. That's for good drainage, and because they're buried in the dirt, it's also going to retain moisture there for the plants, but not too much. I did that because, well, for one thing, I like the look of it, and for another thing, I thought putting them up in pots might help the bottom leaves to stay off the ground in the walkway, and I can maybe direct them better to go into the middle of this bed and down the other side. I don't know. One of the main issues is this bed, although you can't tell it from this angle, is quite hilled, so the sides are on quite a slope. Now, I managed to even out the other side, the bean side, a little bit better when I planted, but this side I thought I'm just going to put pots in. It'll be easier to water. The water won't run down the slope as easily. And squash, well, they need a lot of water in the intense heat we get during the summer. We get absolutely no rain for 7 to 9 months here. So this way, when the water goes directly into the pots, I can be sure that the roots are getting a good supply. Now, in between the pots, you can see I've planted some things. That's just some zinnia seeds I had going somewhere else. Here is a volunteer xenia that I transplanted here, and some volunteer amaranth that I decided to transplant here because I'd had so much of it where it was. And I think I put some walking onions down there. They look so tiny, so innocent, so, you know, unassuming. That could be a mistake. They could take over. But it's okay. I will control them. Here on the end of the bed in a 15-gallon container, I've got a golden Hubbard squash. It is the only one that germinated from the golden Hubbard seeds. I think they were too old, but at least I've got one. And so I'm protecting it in its young stage from the birds and the squirrels. And here on the end of the corn and cherry tomato bed, I have a red roselle hibiscus, and 2 more red roselle hibiscus next to the squash bed. I am looking forward to the blossoms on these plants and the tea I can make with them. And here in my sun gold cherry tomato bed, which also has strawberries growing and some gooseberry bushes and some canna lilies there in the backdrop, has some beautiful zinnias coming up. These are giant cactus zinnias, and I do love the color on this one. Now this one isn't so giant yet. Doesn't even really look like the same petals, but I do love the color. I see some sun gold tomatoes I'm going to eat for breakfast. The amaranth is looking beautiful. I love volunteer plants, and when it comes to the best of them, amaranth has to be right up there. It self-seeds quite prolifically, and just look at it. It's gorgeous. It's already 5.5 feet tall, and I think it's gonna continue all the way up to the sky. Well, that ended up taking 2 days, didn't it? But it was worth it. Everything looks really great, and I'm really happy about it, and I hope you enjoyed the video along with me. And remember, you can create the life you want and the garden you want, so why not start right now? See you next time, everyone.